The invitation to Mom's house came 3 days after the insurance company denied my claim for the third time. Family dinner. The text read, "Everyone will be there, 6 p.m. Sunday, don't be late." I stared at my phone in the temporary apartment I'd been renting since November. The one bedroom was a significant downgrade from the house I'd sold to open my bookstore, the store that no longer existed. The dream that had turned to ash, literally. I arrived at 5:55 p.m. Mom answered the door with her usual tight smile. "Oh good, you actually came," she said, stepping aside. "Your sister said you'd probably skip." Jennifer was already in the living room, wine glass in hand, laughing with her husband Mark. My brother Tom sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. Everyone looked comfortable, settled, successful. I looked like someone who'd lost everything, because I had. "There she is," Jennifer said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "How are you holding up?" "Managing," I said quietly. Mom called us to the dining room. The table was set beautifully, her good china, cloth napkins, a roasted chicken that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I took my usual seat at the far end. Dinner started with the normal small talk. Tom's promotion, Jennifer's new car, Mark's golf handicap. Nobody asked about me. Nobody mentioned the fire that had destroyed my bookstore on November 18th, 3 months ago. I pushed food around my plate, barely eating. "So," Mom said finally, looking at me, "have you thought about what you're going to do? You can't live off unemployment forever." "I'm looking for work," I said. "Maybe retail," Jennifer suggested. "Since you have experience now." I didn't respond. My phone sat in my lap, recording app activated before I'd even gotten out of my car. I'd started recording all family interactions after the fire. Something about their behavior felt wrong. Too calm, too unbothered by my catastrophe. "The insurance company denied her claim again," Tom said, not looking up from his phone. "I heard from Janet." Janet worked at the insurance office. Of course he knew. "Well," Mom said carefully, "they must have their reasons. They said the evidence points to arson." I said quietly, "They think I burned down my own store for the insurance money." Jennifer's laugh was sharp and sudden. She tried to cover it with a cough, but I saw Mark nudge her under the table. "That's ridiculous," Mom said. "Why would you do that?" "I wouldn't," I said, "but someone did." The table went quiet. I watched their faces carefully. Tom looked uncomfortable. Mom busied herself cutting chicken. Mark stared at his wine glass. Jennifer looked directly at me, smiling. "Maybe it was faulty wiring," she said. "Old buildings have problems. The fire inspector ruled that out," I said. "Someone poured accelerant along the back wall. Someone who knew the security camera only covered the front entrance." "Terrible," Mom murmured. "Just terrible." We ate in silence for several minutes. I could feel something building in the room, a tension, an energy. Jennifer kept glancing at Mark. Tom shifted in his seat. Finally, Jennifer refilled her wine glass and leaned back in her chair. "You know what I think," she said. "I think you should just accept it and move on." "Accept what?" I asked. "That your little bookstore was always going to fail," Jennifer said, her voice hardening. "You invested everything into a business model that died 20 years ago. Nobody wants physical books anymore. It was just a matter of time." "It was doing well," I said quietly. "I was profitable." "Barely," Tom interjected. "You told me yourself the margins were tight." "That's normal for the first 2 years," I said. Jennifer laughed again. This time she didn't try to hide it. "You're so naive," she said. "You always have been. Remember when you thought you'd be a writer, or when you were going to open a restaurant? You have these stupid dreams and they always fail." "Jennifer," Mom said half-heartedly, "that's enough." "No, it's not enough," Jennifer said, leaning forward. She was getting drunk now. I could see it in her unfocused eyes. "She needs to hear this. She wasted her entire inheritance from Grandma on that store. The money that could have helped Mom with her medical bills. The money that could have been invested properly. Instead, she bought shelves and books and threw it all away. It was my inheritance," I said. "I could do what I wanted with it, and look how that turned out." Jennifer said, "Up in smoke." Mark touched her arm. "Jen, maybe." She shook him off. The wine had loosened something in her, something mean and sharp. "You want to know the truth?" Jennifer said, her eyes locked on mine. "We burned down your store for the payout. We did you a favor actually. Now you can stop pretending to be a businesswoman and get a real job." The room froze. I felt my heart hammering but kept my face blank. Calm. Under the table my phone continued recording. "What did you just say?" I asked quietly. Jennifer realized what she'd said. I watched the color drain slightly from her face, but then she looked at Mark, at Tom, at Mom. They were all family. She was safe here. You heard me, she said, recovering her confidence. We burned down your pathetic bookstore. Mark knew about the camera placement because he helped you install it, remember? Tom created the LLC to buy the insurance policy so it couldn't be traced back to us, and I poured the accelerant myself. Jennifer, stop talking, Mark said urgently. Why? She demanded. You're too stupid to prove it. The insurance company thinks you did it yourself. The police closed the investigation. We're getting $400,000 split 3 ways and you're getting nothing. 4 ways, Mom corrected quietly. Don't forget my share. I stared at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You were in on this? I asked. The store was on my property, Mom said defensively. I co-signed the loan. Legally, I'm entitled to the insurance payout since you can't pay back what you owe. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs. Tell me exactly what happened, I said. I want to understand. Jennifer smiled. She was enjoying this now. The wine had made her reckless. Fine, she said. You want the whole story. Tom found a guy who needed money, gave him $5,000 cash to do it on November 18th at 2 a.m. Mark disabled the motion sensors that night, when he stopped by to pick up that book you recommended. I drove to the store at 2:15 a.m., and walked around back with 2 gallons of paint thinner, poured it along the entire back wall, threw in a road flare, and drove away. The store was fully engulfed in 8 minutes, Tom added. He seemed almost proud, very efficient. We filed the claim the next day, Mom said. Everything was already prepared. The LLC owns the policy, the property's in my name, and the investigators found exactly what we wanted them to find. Evidence of arson that pointed toward the desperate business owner. You, Jennifer said, pointing at me. They think you did it because you were failing and needed the money, which honestly would have been smarter than whatever you were actually doing. I was making a profit, I repeated quietly. Barely, Tom said again. We saw your books. Jennifer has your passwords. Remember, you gave them to her when you had the flu last year. Jennifer leaned across the table, her face close to mine. Here's what's going to happen, she said slowly. You're going to shut up about the fire. You're going to accept that your claim was denied. You're going to move on with your life. Because if you try to cause problems, we'll make sure the investigation turns back on you. Tom knows people at the police department. Mark has friends at the insurance company, and you have nothing. Nothing except the truth, I said. The truth doesn't matter, Jennifer said, sitting back. Nobody believes the truth anymore. They believe evidence, and all the evidence points to you. Mark stood up suddenly. I'm getting another beer. Anyone else? Sit down, Mark, Mom said. We're not done here. We should be, Mark said. Jen said too much already. She's family, Jennifer said dismissively. What's she going to do? Run to the police with a story about how her own mother and siblings committed arson? They'll laugh her out of the station. The insurance company is still investigating, I said. Let them investigate, Tom said. They won't find anything that leads to us. We were careful. Tom created the shell company in Delaware, Jennifer explained, like she was teaching a child. The registered agent is a law firm that handles hundreds of companies. There's no paper trail connecting any of us to the policy. Mom owns the property, but she wasn't even in town the night of the fire. She was visiting Aunt Carol in Phoenix. Mark was home with the kids. Tom was at a conference in Chicago, and I was at my house with a documented migraine. I even called in sick to work the next day. You planned alibis, I said. Of course we did, Jennifer said. We're not amateurs. The guy who actually lit the fire, he's already left the state. Tom gave him an extra $2,000 to disappear. He's probably in Nevada by now. You've thought of everything, I said. We have, Mom confirmed. This conversation doesn't leave this room. You understand, family protects family. You destroyed my life, I said. My business, my savings, my future. How is that protecting family? You were wasting your inheritance, Mom said sharply. Grandma left that money for something meaningful, not for you to play shopkeeper. She left it to me, I said. It was mine to waste, and now it's ours to invest properly. Tom said, the insurance payout will be distributed according to the ownership structure. Mom gets 40% as the property owner. Jennifer, Mark and I each get 20% through the LLC. You get nothing because you defaulted on the loan. The loan you made sure I couldn't pay back, I said. Details, Jennifer said, waving her hand. She drained her wine glass. You know what the best part is? Even if you tried to tell someone, who would believe you? You're broke, desperate, and facing fraud allegations from the insurance company. We're respected members of the community with perfect alibis and no motive, except $400,000, I said, which we earned by investing in the property and the business structure. Tom said, completely legal. The arson isn't legal, I pointed out. Prove it, Jennifer said, leaning forward again. Prove that we did anything wrong. You can't. You have no evidence, no witnesses, no proof of any kind. It's your word against ours, and our word comes with alibis and documentation and connections. What about the guy who lit the fire? I asked. Good luck finding him, Tom said. No phone records, no emails, no paper trail. I met him at a bar, and paid cash. He doesn't even know our real names. I looked around the table at my family, my mother, my sister, my brother-in-law. They all looked back at me with varying expressions of superiority and contempt. I'm going to prove it, I said quietly. Jennifer laughed loudly. With what? Your detective skills, your vast resources. You can't even afford rent without a roommate. I stood up slowly. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. Thank you for dinner, Mom, I said. You're leaving already? Mom asked. We haven't had dessert. I've lost my appetite, I said. I walked to the door. Behind me I could hear Jennifer laughing again. She's so pathetic, Jennifer said. Did you see her face? Let it go, Jen, Mark said quietly. Why should I? She needed to know the truth. Better she heard it from us than spent the rest of her life wondering what happened. I closed the door behind me and walked to my car. Once inside, I stopped the recording. 53 minutes of audio. Every confession, every detail, every name. I sat in the parking lot and played it back. The quality was perfect, every word clear and distinct. Then I opened my email, and began attaching the file. The first email went to the State Insurance Fraud Division, the second to the Arson Investigation Unit, the third to the District Attorney's Office, the fourth to the State Police, the fifth to the FBI Field Office. Insurance fraud over $100,000 crosses federal thresholds, the sixth to the State Attorney General, the seventh to the insurance company's Special Investigations Unit, the eighth to my lawyer. In each email, I wrote the same message. Attached is a recording made tonight, February 16th at my mother's residence. The recording contains confessions to arson, insurance fraud and conspiracy from the following individuals: Jennifer Morrison, Mark Morrison, Thomas Chen and Patricia Chen. The fire in question occurred on November 18th at 2:15 a.m. at the bookstore located at 847 Pine Street. The confessions include specific details about planning, execution and financial motives. I am the owner of the destroyed business and the victim of this crime. Please investigate immediately. I sent all 8 emails and sat back in my car. My phone rang. Jennifer. I didn't answer. A text came through. Where did you go? Mom's upset. I blocked her number. Another text from Tom. You left your sweater. Do you want me to drop it off? I blocked him too. I started my car and drove back to my small apartment. Once inside, I made copies of the recording, one on my computer, one on a thumb drive, one uploaded to cloud storage, one emailed to myself. Then I waited. The first response came 2 hours later. The insurance fraud investigator wanted to meet first thing Monday morning. The second response came at 11 p.m. The district attorney's office requested I come in for a formal statement. By midnight, all 8 agencies had responded. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Somewhere across town, my family was probably finishing dessert, laughing about how stupid I was, how powerless. They had no idea what was coming, but they would, very soon.